They're constantly pecking at you. You actually have agreed with the president's framing of this. You agree that this is a witch hunt. Explain.
Well, we just saw in the Intelligence Committee yesterday, the chief of the CIA was asked, was there any evidence of collusion with the Russians on the part of the Trump campaign? And the answer, several times he was asked that, was no, there was not. Yet we still see the constant level of attacks. You see stories that are coming in based on anonymous sources.
Congressman, yesterday he was asked repeatedly if he saw evidence of collusion. He said he didn't deal with evidence. What he says is he saw intelligence which led him to believe there were contacts between Russia and people involved with the Trump campaign that raised questions that were unanswered when he left office, but he would not directly say he saw evidence there. It just gets to the idea that there are these open questions.
Well, again, there you're going, taking the worst possible spin on
I'm just saying what he
said.
I'm not spinning. I'm just saying what he said.
Yeah.
That's all I'm doing.
My takeaway from it was that there really wasn't any evidence of anything improper. And we are spending hours and hours in Congress with folks saying investigate this, investigate that, yet they're not willing to give the investigators, which we now have with our special counsel, the chance to investigate it. It's just
so,
a constant...
All right, you say we're taking the worst part, and that's your opinion. You're welcome to it. We watched the entire hearing, as it sounds like you did as well. Let me read you a quote from former CIA Chief John Brennan. By the time I left office on January 20th, I had unresolved questions in my mind as to whether or not the Russians have been successful in getting U.S. persons involved in the campaign or not to work on their behalf. Again, either wittingly or unwittingly, he went on to say, I saw interaction that raised question in my mind as to what was the true nature of it. That is more than just... the worst part of it. That is what he said over and over again.
Again, he constant questioning. He was unable to point to any specific evidence. And I think that's what we're going to continue to see there. And my fear is our constant focusing on the Russians is deflecting away for some other things that we need to be investigating in. There's still some question as to whether the intrusion at the DNC server was an insider job or whether or not it was the Russians.
What evidence? I'm sorry. What the insider job? What are you referring to here? Because I hope it's not this information that Fox News just refused to be reporting.
Well, again, there's stuff circulating on the internet. My question is, why haven't the federal officials
What's circulating on the internet that you think is worthy of a congressional investigation? Because the D.C. police are investigating this, and so far they haven't said there's any there.
Yet the D.C. police nor no federal investigator has ever had a look at the DNC computer. We're relying only on the report of somebody that the DNC contracted to examine their computer rather than having federal officials. To me, we need to let the feds look at it.
Congressman, do you think it's responsible to bring up, as a representative of the American people, to bring up things, in your words, that are swirling on the internet, and give it justification as if there's a there when we know nothing on that yet?
I think the same is true with what the media is doing with Trump. We're basing allegations on anonymous sources.
Okay, so do you mean quoting the former CIA director who said, quote, I saw evidence worthy of investigation by the Bureau to determine whether there was cooperation or collusion that was taking place?
I'm going back to the Comey memo. I'm going back to the Comey memo, which is based entirely on anonymous sources. So my overall point is this needs to be fully investigated.
Yes.
Let the professionals investigate it. Let's not try it in the media, which is serving from a distraction for what needs to be done in this country. That's fixing health care, that's getting people back to work, that's fixing taxes, that's securing the border. Instead, we're hearing a constant barrage of anti-Trump, I'm going to call it propaganda.
Well, okay, if the propaganda is coming from the former CIA director, if that's your opinion, you're entitled to it. If the FBI director, James Comey, says he wrote the memos, well, if he says it out loud from his mouth, will that be propaganda?
Again, I want to hear what Comey has to say. I want to hear the facts. I want to hear the information about it.
But to John's question, if the former FBI director, James Comey, says, yes, indeed, I wrote those memos, as we have reported from multiple reliable sources, will that still be propaganda in your mind, Congressman?
No, it won't, but we need to hear the facts and circumstances associated with that memo. And I'll tell you, if he's such a big memo writer, there's some memos from the previous administration in the campaign that I'd like to see as well.